What if there are two people interviewing me at my immigration interview? Hi, I'm Jim Hacking, immigration lawyer practicing law throughout the United States at our offices in St. Louis, Missouri and San Diego, California. You know, sometimes people show up for a naturalization interview or they show up for a green card interview and there's not one but two people in the room. Now, there could be several reasons for this. The most frequent reason for this is that one of the people in the room conducting the interview or watching the interview is a newbie. They're brand new. They haven't done it before. So oftentimes you'll see new officers sit in and shadow and watch how an interview goes. You might have an officer who is first trained in naturalization and hasn't done a green card interview yet. And I think that is the trajectory that new officers go. First they do naturalization, then they do green cards, which is interesting because that's sort of how we handle it at our office. Naturalization cases are actually easier to put together and easier to get approved than green card applications because there are a lot more moving parts in a green card application. So I imagine it's the same for new immigration officers. I've seen them start with naturalization and then green cards. And so at first, they'll be the ones watching the interview, and then later, they'll be conducting the interview with a supervising officer sitting behind them, making sure they do everything correctly. We saw this a lot when they started doing I-751 interviews, and we see it very often when we get to N-336s, which are appeals of naturalization. So a lot of officers haven't done those hearings before, and so they'll sit in and watch to see how the more experienced officers conduct those interviews. So that's one reason why you might see two people in the room. But the reason that I'm making this video and the thing that I'm most concerned about is that if there's a second person in the room, and if they're videotaping it, and even if they're not videotaping, but they probably would be videotaping it in this scenario, one of those people is probably from another governmental agency, usually the FBI, maybe the IRS. There's different things and different people that we've seen in these situations. So one thing you want to do is really make sure that you know who is in the room. So that's always true. Whenever you go to immigration, you want to make sure that you write down the name of the person who's interviewing you. And you can stop them before they start the interview and ask them their name and write it down and keep track of that, because you might need to send them a letter later. You might need to respond to a request for evidence and you want to address it to them. So you always want to know who's in the room. And that's true if there's a second person. So if there's a second person, you want to find out who they are and try to see if you can figure out where they're from. I would say that if you walk into a room for an interview for your green card or for citizenship and there are two officers there, I would be a little bit worried. I'd be a little bit concerned, and I might be thinking to myself, should I try to stop this interview so that I can get a lawyer? I would be very worried about anyone